South Jersey's play-by-play home for the Eagles,
Touchdown!
Sixers, and Flyers.
He scored!
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City, a Town Square media station. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
It's a Monday edition of Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM. Of course, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. We are live as always as video form on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. The Eagles win, just like we told you they would here on 97.3 ESPN. To dig deeper into the aftermath of the first Eagles Week 1 win in a couple of years, actually, we'll talk with Chris Franklin from NJ.com coming up at 6:20. Eagles beat writer for NJ.com of the Eagles. As NFL Week 1 was very interesting, a lot of interesting takeaways from the weekend. So we'll get into all of that with Chris coming up at 6:20. About the state of the NFC East, the Eagles are the only team to win in Week 1 of the NFC East. Just digest that for a minute. The Giants got pummeled by the Broncos because their offensive line is garbage. The Cowboys lost a very close game. They could have won in theory. Maybe they should have won versus the Bucs. And Washington lost their starting quarterback, tried to stay competitive, but ultimately lost to a better team. So, at the end of the day, the Eagles are in first place. Do we give them credit? It's hard. It's hard to argue against giving the Eagles credit right now. And I'll give you my takeaways from the Eagles game yesterday. Also, some interesting college football news that directly ties in to our Football Friday picks that we gave you on Friday. And of course, our football picks each week are being brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Casino in Atlantic City. Bet all the action in style this football season at the state-of-the-art FanDuel Sportsbook just off the boardwalk at Bally's Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let's dig deeper into the Eagles because there were specific things that happened in the game that stood out very, very particular to me. All right. The first thing that stood out to me was I don't think we can compliment enough what the coaching staff has done for this team. Last year, every single week, the Philadelphia Eagles were predictable. You knew what Peterson and Schwartz were coming with. It was refreshing to see something different. And not just for the sake of being different. We saw disguised coverages on defense. We saw an offense with variety. We saw 11 personnel, 12 personnel, 13 personnel, trips to the left. We saw what is basically a variation of a shotgun full house backfield at one point in the game. Like it was refreshing to see different. So you got to give Sirianni and Gannon credit. Sirianni's offensive coaching staff, guys like Steichen, him and his staff did a great job at going into the game and not being predictable. On the other side of it, Gannon did a great job at also not being predictable. Because what Gannon did is Gannon brought disguises. Gannon didn't always give you the same look. Now, the funny thing was the result of almost every third down was actually the same. But it didn't look the same each third down. And that's the key. the Eagles became stagnant. They became dormant. They became a little too predictable. And it's one thing to be predictable and nobody can stop you, right? Like you look at, a school like, for example, a school like Delsea High School here in South Jersey, or you look at a college football team like Alabama, right? You know what they're going to send at you offensively and defensively, but you have no idea how you're going to stop it. You have no idea. There's never a point in time where if you are a high school in our area and you know that Delsea is going to run that same offense they've been running for 20 plus years, you can't stop it. Alabama has been running the same offense now, or at least some variation of it, with now Bryce Young, Mac Jones, Tua Tagovailoa. You can't stop it, right? And to me, it's one thing if the Eagles were running the same thing again and again and you couldn't stop it. It's a completely other thing if you kept running the same thing and the clock's broken. All right, so that was the first big takeaway I had from the game. The second big takeaway I have from the game is I think it's time for all the Jalen Hurts haters to get over themselves. Jalen Hurts threw 3 touchdown passes yesterday to 3 different receivers. So now you have a quarterback who is in his 20s throwing touchdown passes to all receivers in their 20s. The top 3 receiving targets of their draft classes all caught touchdowns yesterday. Dallas Goedert, the first pick of the 2018 NFL draft. Jalen Reagor, the top pick in the 2020 NFL draft. Devonta Smith, the top pick of the 2021 NFL draft for your Philadelphia Eagles. All of them were hit, and they won for you on those plays because of Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts showed you that he is not a one-trick pony, that he is not a one-dimensional guy, that those leadership qualities that we have talked about here on 97.3 ESPN, that they matter. And despite what the blowhards out there, who for some reason some people still listen to, who are either in the national media or the miserable folk in the local media who are stationed up there in the city of Philadelphia, those anti-Hurts people need to step back and eat a nice, cold bath in their face right now. Because we are in a city where I've had to hear for 20 plus years about Donovan McNabb. I had to listen to people tell me about Kevin Cobb, Michael Vick, Sam Bradford, Carson Wentz, Nick Foles. I had to listen to people bloviate about some of the most mediocre quarterbacks in NFL history. I had to listen to people tell me that Jeff Garcia should be the starter and the Eagles should have traded away Donovan McNabb. I had to listen to people tell me that Nick Foles should start over Carson Wentz. I had to listen to people tell me that Sam Bradford after a preseason game was a second coming. I had to listen to people telling me that Kevin Cobb is going to be better than Donovan McNabb. I had to listen to people tell me all kinds of garbage and all kinds of weird stuff about quarterbacks in the last 20 plus years. But yet these same people wouldn't give Jalen Hurts the chance to prove himself. And now you have an offense that honestly looked a lot like Alabama's offense yesterday. If you are a college football fan like me and you've watched Alabama's offense for the last few years, that's what I saw yesterday. The sweeps, the variety of the offensive plays, the fact that you knew the quarterback was going to make a play, the fact that you couldn't stop him at times. I'm not promising you that Hurts and the Eagles will do this every week, but the fact that you could do it week 1 of a season is a good sign. And by the way, all I could think about yesterday was this soundbite from Howie Roseman back in April when Howie was asked about judging the 2020 NFL draft class. This is what Howie Roseman said to the media back in April of this year.
Yeah, we learned a lot about the process last year. Obviously unique the first time that we're doing all of these on Zoom, and there are a lot of lessons learned. And I think where we are right now is just excited about the teamwork that we had throughout this process with the coaches, with the scouts, with our front office, and move for there to make sure that we have a tremendous draft this year. You know, the book hasn't been written on last year's draft either. So excited for those guys to get with coach and his staff.
Wait, I'm sorry, Howie. Can you repeat that last part for me again? Just for the folks in the back room who may not have heard that. Just for the folks in the back. Howie, what was that?
This draft this year, you know, the book hasn't been written on last year's draft either. So excited for those guys to get with coach and his staff.
Oh, you're excited for him to get with this coaching staff. Right. So look what happened when Sirianni and his people got a hold of Jalen Reagor, Miles Sanders. Look at what they do with Devonta Smith. Look at what happened with Kenneth Gainwell. Look at what happened with Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz. It's funny how the coaching staff matters. So I give credit to Sirianni. I give credit to Gannon. I give credit to Hurts. I give credit to an offensive line that was blowing people off the line. I'm giving credit to a defensive line. This team has talent. They are not a 6 or 4 win team. And you saw that yesterday. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. As always, you could join the conversation in a multitude of ways, of course. We got the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. You can direct message the show for free thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City. Also, the text board is open, 609-403-0973, and we are live on YouTube and Twitter. James chimes in and says, Miles Sanders, Professor Gainwell, Eagles win, and Slim Reaper book it. Couple things there. I think that you finally got to see what Miles Sanders should be able to do week in and week out. I love the fact that they showed the confidence in Gainwell, because people forget Gainwell was the reason why Antonio Gibson was forced to become a wide receiver in Memphis. That's how good Gainwell is. And the Eagles were basically rewarded in their confidence in him. Obviously, the Slim Reaper, Devonta Smith, the dude is just a smooth operator, as Jalen Hurts once described him as. You saw Smith get off of what was attempted, press coverage, attempted double teams, attempted zone coverages, and he found ways to get open. And that was an excellent touchdown play. If you go back and rewatch that, Zach Ertz did an elite job at basically pulling off a rub route or a pick play without making contact with the cornerback at all. And Devontae, those long strides of his got him all the way to the end zone before the corner could do anything about it. And Jalen just hit him just so easy in stride. I love what I saw for the young players, James. I think that we got talent here. I'm not promising you they're going to win, 32-6 every week, but this offense is not going to be stagnant. This offense is not going to be limited as they were previously. Jeff chimes in as well. Jeff Bowden Pookie says, I asked Mike Gill on our O-line earlier, do you think our defensive line has the tone this season, or is it too soon? I mean, you can set a tone and you're not fully sure what the rest of the year is going to hold. Look, I said on Friday, Jeff, I believe that this game will be won in the trenches. And you saw it happen on Sunday. I saw a team that the offensive line dominated, the defensive line executed. I thought that both sides of the ball were, the foundation is built on the lines. And then all the other stuff can happen around it. Because as long as you have good blocking and at least good pressure by the D-line, you have a chance to win in the NFL. And you saw what Chandler Jones did yesterday for Arizona with 5 sacks against the Titans. You saw what the Steelers defense did getting after the Bills yesterday in Buffalo. You saw what the Rams defense does when they got after the quarterback versus Chicago. Defensive lines matter just as much as the offensive line. And the Eagles have built their entire everything around that concept. We'll dig deeper into the Eagles win coming up next with James Franklin from NJ.com right here on Game Night. Josh Hennig hanging out with you, 97.3 ESPN FM. Don't forget the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City.
Kevin Harlan from Monday Night Football on Westwood One with a preview of the Week 1 matchup, the Baltimore Ravens at the Las Vegas Raiders. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens were 11-5 last season, but one and done in the playoffs. Can they get off to a fast start this season and spoil the Raiders' first ever fan-filled game in Las Vegas? Join me and Kurt Warner to find out on Monday Night Football.
Listen to Monday Night Football on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 7:30.
It's game time. Football season is in full swing, and you can catch all the NFL action at the FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's Hotel and Casino, Atlantic City. It's time to get in on all the games you love. Experience sports betting done right with live streaming games, food and beverage, self-service betting kiosks, and more. Get your game face on and score big this weekend when you bet at FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's off the boardwalk, Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hey, Baldy here to tell you about a new team, EMT Solar Roofing and Solar Guardians. See, protecting the quarterback was my job in the NFL, and this team is here to protect your home and wallet by upgrading your roof with solar. Check out espnsolar.com for all your roofing and solar solutions. EMT and Solar Guardians, one click, one team, one solution. To start your solar journey, visit espnsolar.com.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig back here on Monday's edition of Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM. Don't forget the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. We'll get to more of your messages in just a bit. Keep them coming in. You can direct message the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app or text in 609-403-0973. As always, we are live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. But right now, joining us on the phone line to talk more about the Philadelphia Eagles' big Week 1 win, he is Chris Franklin from NJ.com. And also check out the podcast with him and Mike K, known as the No Huddle Show podcast. He joins us right now on 97.3 ESPN. Chris, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing well, Josh, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. And you know what? It seems like a lot of Eagle fans are pretty darn happy after that game yesterday. But I got to say, as I put on Twitter, Chris, when you spoke to Brian Griese, what you wrote about at NJ.com, that whole analysis became very prophetic because pretty much everything Griese told you at NJ.com was the formula for what we saw in the game yesterday.
Yeah, what do you know? Like, when you actually have a healthy offensive line, they actually do well. They did well. I mean, they gave Jalen Hurts a lot of time to maneuver, and they gave him a lot of space in the pocket. And when the Falcons actually did have defenders that broke through the line, he was able to have enough space to move around and make the plays do. So I still can't believe that throw he made to Goddard in the back of the end zone. They did really well, and that became a product of the offensive line being healthy and intact, especially Brandon Brooks and Lane Johnson being back. And you see it makes a big difference.
Why do you think maybe we don't have the right answer for this? So that's why I'm just kind of putting it out there. Why do you think that the general public or the haters out there in the national media, why don't they value the trench play as much as an actual NFL team like the Eagles do?
I think if I had to look like from the outside, I think when you look at fantasy football, you see like all the attention and the glory goes to the skill positions. I mean, everybody loves the quarterback and they love to see the passes and throws. Everybody loves the receivers to see the big plays that happen there. But when you look at the 5 guys that are up there, somebody has to create time for those plays to happen. And given that the 5 guys the Eagles have there, they have a unit that's in my opinion, is in the top 5. And when you have 5 guys that can go give you time, that can open up and create holes in the running game and wear teams down in the long run, it only bodes well for you. So I think a little bit it has to be fantasy football. Plays a little bit role in that.
Yeah, I would say the combination of fantasy, my personal opinion, Chris, it's a combination of fantasy football and sports betting has kind of confused people's ability to judge football on the field at times because they're so stuck on the numbers in those worlds that they forget about the football game is played on the field and not on their computer.
That's not a bad thing. Can you imagine having a prop bet on how many pancake blocks Jordan Mailata would have against the defensive end? That would be an interesting thing to see there. But that definitely plays a role too. I mean, like you can't go up to the window and you can't go, okay, well, I think the line is only going to give up 2.5 sacks today, and see that it's really tough to quantify and tough to follow along. You don't see that many even jerseys. You don't see that many offensive line jerseys. You see Lane Johnson and Jason Kelsey because of their personalities, I think, and you don't see a lot of people wearing these jerseys of the offensive linemen, but they definitely do deserve some love.
Chris Franklin joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN at C Franklin News. Check out all of his coverage of the Eagles over at NJ.com. Chris, talking about the guy behind the line, Jalen Hurts, I felt there's a huge difference from last year to this year. Whereas last year you had a quarterback who was stubborn, a quarterback who held on the ball too much. And this year you have a quarterback that looks like the entire team is invested in him as their leader, in Jalen Hurts.
Well, I think a lot of times as well, too, especially when you're a rookie and you're able to run the ball and have the athleticism that he has, first thing you want to do is I don't see the first read or second read. I'm going to go take off and use the abilities that were given to me. And the one thing I really like that he's done all throughout training camp and even we saw on Sunday, is he's starting to go not only progress through his read, but he's letting the routes develop and take time. And it's a big key, and that's a big thing that separates from average quarterbacks to elite quarterbacks. Do you go back to your first read? Do you go back to your second read? Do you go 1, 2, 3? I don't like this, and then run. He's be more decisive. He's making some better decisions when it comes to when to run and when not to run. And then he's gotten a lot better when it comes to his accuracy as well too. I mean, you can't ignore 52% from last year. You just can't. But one thing I saw as training camp is going along, he's been working with Brian Johnson, working on his footwork. His motion looks a lot better, and he's throwing the ball with a more compact motion, and he's getting it to his receivers, and it's setting up for some nice yards after catch and keeping drives alive.
You mentioned Brian Johnson. I remember, Johnson was at Mississippi State when Dak Prescott was there. And a lot of people, might point to the fact that Hurts and Dak have a similar body type. So how much do you think that the experience that Brian Johnson had with Prescott is able to be applied to Hurts now, possibly?
I think there's some things there. I think you can see some similarities there. I just think overall it just comes down to when it comes to fundamentals. I mean, he took Kyle Trask and he made him look really good. And personally, my own opinion, I think Kyle Trask is not going to be a big primetime player in the NFL. But you see, it all comes down to fundamental. But it does come down to fundamentals when it comes to that. Because there's so many times that you see if you don't have a good teacher that tells players, hey, you know what? This is what you look for. This is how you just go out there and do what you did beforehand in college. And you see it break down over time. I think when you look at guys like Tim Couch, who when he first came in the league, he had a lot of ability, but I don't think he had the right players, the right coaches that were able to harness that and maximize ability. And then after a while, he was out the league. So I think it's more about when you look at Dak Prescott. I mean, he has a lot of abilities. I think right now he's definitely hit and hurts. But if they're at the same point in their careers, I think there's still enough of a difference between the two of them where it's two completely different quarterbacks.
You mentioned the teachers. It obviously goes back to the coaches, and the guy who was part of hiring Brian Johnson was Nick Sirianni. Chris, what did you take from the Eagles coaching staff yesterday in their debut?
Well, I liked the game plan he came up with, and they weren't afraid to shy away when something was going on, when something was working. They didn't shy away from going back to it. I mean, when you look last year when it came to Doug Peterson and the play calling and some of the selections they made, there were times where you saw there was a play run, say it was an outside zone run was working, and then it just seemed to get lost over time. It was like Sirianni has no problem with doing that. I mean, look at the first two plays. He went to first two plays. He threw a wide receiver screen to Quez Watkins, saw it worked, and came right back to it. And he has shown that he's not afraid to do that. And he's also, what I like is he's using these different formations to have some success and set up his players to do well, because they're throwing out 3 tight end looks. They're throwing out these exotic formations where you have 2 receivers behind each other, but it opens up the middle of the field to let Miles Sanders and Kenny Gainwell get some extra yards up the middle and let the offensive line go. So they're coming up with a good game plan, and they're using formations that helps them succeed in the long run.
Chris, what does it say to you that each of the top receiving targets from the 2018, 2020, 2021 NFL draft all caught touchdowns in yesterday's game?
Well, I think we're in a passing league now. It's crazy to see that the amount of talent at the receiver position now is mind-boggling. I mean, you go back to Justin Jefferson, you look at even Devonta Smith, you look at all these guys that are out there, and you see the speed that they have, and everybody comes so advanced. I mean, I think it goes back to those times now where you got guys who are in middle school now going from 707 and being immersed in football, and they continue to go up through high schools. I remember it was when I was in high school playing a wing T system. Now you look at guys that are running like college type systems there and all the no huddles. And I think it starts from that level, and they just keep continuing to grow and grow and grow. So by the time they are in the NFL, they're mature. They've had so much experience. There's so much physical ability. They mature to the point they're able to have this early success instead of waiting 2-3 years and then hoping that they develop into somebody that can stay around for 5-10 years at that.
Although I will say, you mentioned Justin Jefferson. Jalen Reagor did have more catches and more touchdown receptions than Jefferson did yesterday. But I know that people still hate Rager, but I just want to say that, it's funny when you give the guy a chance to be successful, what he can do.
Yeah, and you know what? And the name I'm going to invoke, it's something. It may be in the same vein, but I think if he can be like a Todd Pinkston type player, and there's nothing wrong with a Todd Pinkston type player. At one point, I think one year he led the league in yards per catch, in yardage per catch. If you have a guy who can take the top off the defense, basically just go down the field, either you go down the field on a fly route, or he can take a wide receiver screen. He's got the punt returner mentality. He can go ahead and make some big plays for you. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, sure, would you like to have Justin Jefferson of the Eagles? Yeah, definitely. But now that you have other pieces around this offense is diverse. When you have Sanders, when you have Devonta Smith, when you have Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz, you can do so much within the system that you don't have to rely solely on Rager, and that can take a lot of pressure off of him, and he can still make a lot of plays.
Well, your memory doesn't fail you. Todd Pinkston twice was top 10 in the NFL in yards per reception, 2003, 2004. So there you go.
It helps you have T.O. on the other side, too.
It does a lot. Chris Franklin joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, covers the Eagles for NJ.com. Chris, let's flip it over to the defense. What you saw from the defense, there's a contingent of people out there who are saying the Falcons were really poor. There's another contingent of people who are saying the Eagles' defense was really good. Where do you fall in that argument?
I thought it was a little bit more of Arthur Smith. I think it was two-pronged. I think Arthur Smith abandoned the run a little bit too early. I thought they had some success. I saw the Eagles' defensive line look like either one guy or two guys at a time were over pursuing gaps and not filling it, and that allowed the cutback lanes on the backside. And Cordell Patterson and Mike Davis got some huge yardage off of that. And then the one thing I liked is what goes like the coach said. Jonathan Gannon made some quick changes in the middle of the second quarter and at halftime, and then they shut it down eventually. You saw TJ Edwards and Sean Bradley get a lot more run on the defensive side, and the next thing you know, they're playing gap control, and the Falcons have trouble running the ball, and so they went to the pass more. So I like the adjustments that were made. I still think there's some questions, especially in the secondary long term. Avonte Maddox, he had some moments, but there were some times where he did miss some tackles. So I think it's a little bit in between there, but the secondary is the biggest question mark for me. But I think this defense is going to be a little bit better than what we saw on Sunday.
Part of that question mark is right now Marcus Epps still in the concussion protocol. Rodney McLeod didn't play last week. How much is that safety situation going to maybe be a bigger problem when you see a team like the 49ers?
I think it's going to be. You have to worry about Deebo Samuel. I think that's going to be a big thing. I was a little surprised that Elijah Riley wasn't called up yesterday as one of the practice squad guys, and he definitely would have helped out yesterday when it came there. But luckily, for the Eagles, their offense was able to make up for that. But it could be, especially given what the 49ers like to do when it comes to the bootlegs, when it comes to the play action passes, that you want to have a veteran guy or somebody who can read what the offense is about to do and not get beat by not get too far sucked in trying to stop the run. And actually, you have a wide receiver flying past you. So it's going to be something to monitor. Is Epps like that? I think that's lost. I thought he was playing well at the end of last year, I thought he played well even that little bit of time he played on Sunday. So it could come back to bite him. And if McLeod's able to come back in some shape form and look like he's healthy enough to play, I think that'll be a big boost, but that's a big question mark going into Sunday.
You mentioned who they did and didn't call up from the practice squad. How much of what happened Sunday, maybe with the safety situation, maybe was a learning lesson for Sirianni and his coaches? Maybe turn around and say, hey, we don't want to end up in that situation again. We need to be a little bit more maybe savvy when it comes to who we call up for the practice squad.
Well, I think it won't. I think it may be a little bit. I don't think it's going to be wholesale things. You won't see any additional offensive linemen come up with them or anything like that. I think it's a little. I think more. It's going to be more. I think if anything, there's going to be probably an additional running back. Maybe you bring up Jordan Howard to give you some more for power. But I think overall the safety on the secondary side, I think Riley's the only guy I would probably truly trust to come up right now, as opposed to some of those other guys. I mean, because Michael Jacquet and Miles, still have still have nightmares from last year. I had high hopes for him that he'd bounce back, but it didn't do it. So I'd probably say I don't think that not too much is going to change with that.
He's Chris Franklin. Give him a follow on Twitter at @CFranklinNews. Check out the podcast with him and Mike K, the No Huddle Show podcast, and check out his latest at NJ.com about Jordan Mailata explaining what his massive new contract extension means. That's all over at NJ.com. Chris, appreciate you jumping on today.
Hey, Josh, it was a pleasure, man. Thank you very much, man.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, our Eagles conversation with Chris Franklin being brought to you, my friends, over at FanDuel Sportsbook. After a thrilling opening weekend in the NFL, Week 2 is coming up, and all you need to do is log in to FanDuel Sportsbook and claim your first risk-free bet. That's right. FanDuel is giving all customers a risk-free bet for Week 2 of the NFL season. Pick any Week 2 matchup. Eagles, 49ers, Jets, Patriots, Giants versus Washington. You choose what game you want to ride with your risk-free bet on FanDuel Sportsbook. Their app is simple to use with unique fun bet types and always-on promotions to let you get action out of every game day. And with FanDuel Sportsbook, there are so many ways to play during Week 2. If you're new to FanDuel Sportsbook, sign up with my promo code Hennig and receive a risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's promo code Hennig for new customers on FanDuel Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, play and present in New Jersey. First online real money wager only. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Max refund $10. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. We'll check in with you guys have to say next. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. You also can DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. And we are live, as always, on YouTube and Twitter. You can watch the show and join the conversation. I'm Josh Hennig, and this is Game Night.
This is the radio home for Philadelphia Eagles football. It's Week 2 of the 2021 season. This Sunday, hosting the 49ers at the Link.
First and 10, San Francisco at the 25. It's intercepted down the far sideline and in for an Eagles touchdown, Alex Singleton.
Pre-game coverage begins at noon. Merrill and Mike called all the action starting at 1. This is where the Eagles play. 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's Eagles station.
It's game time. Football season is in full swing, and you can catch all the NFL action at the FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's Hotel and Casino, Atlantic City. It's time to get in on all the games you love. Experience sports betting done right with live streaming games, food and beverage, self-service betting kiosks, and more. Get your game face on and score big this weekend when you bet at FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's off the boardwalk, Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig back here on Game Day, Monday edition, the day after the Eagles beat the Falcons here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Don't forget the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. Download for free from the Google Play Store or from the Apple Store. You can direct message the show through the app. You can listen to 97.3 ESPN wherever you go in the world. And also, of course, with the app, you can get all the Eagles, Phillies, Sixers, Flyers, and South Jersey High School sports coverage you need. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, we'll go over the football picks from the weekend, do a little recap of the weekend. And of course, one of those picks I said is directly connected to some of the news that just dropped about 45 minutes ago. We also love to get to hear from you guys. You can message the show on a multitude of platforms wherever you are listening to the show, in your car, on your phone, watching online. We love to hear from you all over the place, wherever you're chiming in to the show. We appreciate you listening to 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig hanging out with you here in the Matt Blatt Kia Studios. Text message chimes in. Says, pump the brakes. A horrible Falcons team made us look great in every aspect of the game. The Falcons could go 0-17 with what I saw. Well, a couple of things there, Texter. First of all, the Falcons are not a good team, all right? I told you guys that on Friday's show. So to see them lose to the Eagles was not the surprise. I just don't think they are going to be week in and week out a team that only scores 6 points. I think that for Kyle Pitts' first game, it was a learning experience for him. I think that Arthur Smith needs to put more confidence in his star players to step up. I think that there were times it looked like that Arthur Smith was calling very tentative plays. You're running it on 3rd and long instead of letting Matt Ryan, fling it. It seemed like Arthur Smith didn't trust his team yet. And I think as the season progresses, I think that'll change. You saw how the Titans fell apart without Arthur Smith offensively as their offensive coordinator. And I think that now that he's in Atlanta, it's going to take him some time to kind of get up to speed. I think the Falcons defense will always be poor the entire year. They just don't have the overall talent defensively. But offensively, they should have been way better than they were yesterday. So I don't see them going 0-17. A team like the Jags, maybe. I think the Jags maybe go 0-17, especially with their defense played yesterday. Woof. I mean, you got bludgeoned by the Texans of all teams. But I don't think the Falcons go 0-17. I can't see a former NFL MVP going 0-17. I feel like there's going to be a game or two where Matt Ryan will be given the keys to the car and told, go win it, guy. And he'll go out there and win it for you. So I think you're overstating the horrible Falcons making the Eagles look great. I think you're denying the reality that the Eagles' offensive and defensive lines are top 10 in the NFL. There's no way you can name me 10 offensive and defensive line combinations that are better than the Eagles. You can't. If you're being objective, you just can't do it. Jeff chimes in about the Monday football game tonight, says, I got the Raiders winning tonight. Jeff, I know a lot of people got the Raiders winning tonight. I feel like that's become a trendy pick right now. I'm going to look it up real quick, but I feel pretty comfortable saying that I think there's a lot of people who are riding with the Raiders at the sports books. Let's go check it out here. Get the latest update on that. Because, like I said, when I look at that game, I know a lot of people are rolling with the idea that the Raiders are at home. So they feel like that's a big part of it. Okay, so there's currently almost 68,000 bets on this game. I got to admit, it looks like that the recent money trend is flipping back to the Ravens. This game opened at 5. It's down to 3.5, 4.5, depending on what book you're looking at. It looks like some recent money came in on the Ravens, so the money has moved plus 8% for the Ravens. But I know on Friday and Saturday, a lot of money was coming in for the Raiders when I saw this game. My problem with rolling with the Raiders is this. I still have no faith in that defense. Even without Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, how do the Raiders defense account for Lamar Jackson and the playmakers on that offense, like Marquise Brown, Mark Andrews? I would like to see the Raiders defense step up before I'm willing to just believe in them for tonight's game. I think tonight might be more like an offensive shootout for part of the game, and then the Ravens just pull away and they run out the clock kind of thing. But we'll see. Maybe there is something to say about that home crowd advantage. There were a lot of road teams that won in the NFL yesterday. A lot of road teams. Okay? Just think about that for a minute. Think about all the road teams. Steelers, for example, they won in Buffalo. Okay? The Eagles won in Atlanta. The Seahawks won in Indianapolis. The Cardinals won in Tennessee. The Chargers won in Washington. The Browns were winning that game pretty handily in the first half in Kansas City. So I got to be honest with you guys. Oh, by the way, Denver won in New York as well. There's a part of me that says, is the Raiders' home field advantage going to really matter that much? By the way, speaking of football picks and, of course, some lines, some of my friends over at Bally's Hotel and Casino, check out the action at FanDuel Sportsbook and Bally's Hotel and Casino, because football season is in full swing, and you can catch all the action and experience sports betting done right with live streaming games, food and beverage, self-service betting kiosks, and more. Go in on all the games you love at FanDuel Sportsbook and Bally's Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. The retail sportsbook is conveniently located right off the boardwalk, featuring 5 betting windows, a large video wall, a sports sticker, 20 self-service betting kiosks, and various lounge seats. Get your game face on and score big this weekend when you bet with FanDuel Sportsbook, only at Bally's in Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. So, got some games to review from over the weekend. I mentioned the one. So, one of our losses over the weekend had to do with USC. USC has fired their head coach, Clay Helton. And I told Mike Gill this earlier off the air. This doesn't surprise me because they just hired a new athletic director, Mike Bohm. He obviously was not in love with Clay Helton. There was a lot of speculation about his job for the last few years. When you lose to Stanford, the way that they did, that was completely embarrassing. It was completely ridiculous how they lost that game. A Stanford team that could barely score the week before just won 42-28 over a USC team that's supposed to have an NFL caliber quarterback. So yeah, we lost that game. But you know what? Maybe they should have fired the head coach. Couple of the college football games we gave you the Iowa versus Iowa State under. We hit that barely by 2 points, by the way. We gave you the Kentucky minus 5.5. They beat up on Missouri offensively. And, of course, we lost the Texas at Arkansas. That was supposed to be under 56.5. I knew as soon as Casey Thompson came in for Hudson Carr, I had a bad feeling that game was not going to stay under because Thompson ran in for a couple touchdowns in that game. The NFL games we told you Eagles would cover 3. We told you Panthers would cover minus 3.5. And I told you Dolphins, Pats under 43.5. 17-16. I mean, that was just a slugfest in that game. We did lose on the Packers 3.5 because did anybody think the Packers were going to lose that game? Unless you're a Saints fan, everybody thought the Packers were going to win that game. I was one of them. And the Packers offense didn't just lose. They got annihilated. They got demolished. They got put down and told to go home. They got kicked out of the stadium. It was so embarrassing. So overall in the year, we're 4-1 on the NFL picks, 13-5 on the college football picks. And of course, the picks each week are being brought to you by the folks over at FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Casino in Atlantic City. Bet all the action inside of this football season at the state-of-the-art FanDuel Sportsbook just off the boardwalk at Bally's Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Thanks again to Chris Franklin from NJ.com for joining us on more Eagles today on the show. Thanks to everybody who messaged in throughout the show. Love hearing from you guys as you each day here on 97.3 ESPN FM. I'll be back tomorrow for Game Night at 6 p.m. following Mike Gill and the Sports Bash. Don't forget, coming up tonight, Monday Night Football. Raiders, Ravens coverage begins at 7:30 right here on your home for Eagles football and the NFL in South Jersey. 97.3 ESPN FM.
With Hall of Fame quarterback Kurt Warner, Kevin Harlan here from Westwood One with a preview of Monday Night Football, Week 1. It's the Baltimore Ravens and the Las Vegas Raiders. And Kurt, John Gruden's Raiders hope to show off a new and improved offense.
Well, you're right, Kevin. This is high expectation year for both of these teams. For the Raiders, we're talking about getting over the hump. They've started fast the last couple years and then slowed down. They need to find a way to finish strong. Derek Carr and company find a way to get into the playoffs. And on the other side, Baltimore, they need to take that next step to become a championship team. But we know tonight we're going to be looking at that running back room that's been decimated by injuries.
It should be a good one. The Ravens at the Raiders coming up on Monday Night Football.
Remember to listen to Westwood One's coverage of the NFL all season long, right here on South Jersey's home of Eagles football.
On 97.3 ESPN.